Hey everybody, Todd Nash, President of Oregon Cattlemen's Association. I'm here today with Tom Birkmaier. And Tom, you're the president of the Wallowa County Stockgrowers Association. And what else do you do there in Wallowa County?
Well, I've been graduated high school in '86, went to Blue Mountain 2 years, learned AI, preg checking, and all the practical stuff I needed, brought that back home. Been ranching full time since I was 20 here in Wallowa County, and came back and joined my dad, who was past president of OCA in I think 1994, 95. His name was Mac. And he still is involved a little bit in the ranch. He's 90, going to be 92. He gets out and helps a little bit every day. And my wife Kelly and I and family are running the ranch. We've added a few properties, but haven't really increased the cow herd too much. Running about 500 mother cows, and we raise about 2/3 of the hay to feed them and graze. The cows all come to the valley in the winter months. We bring them, trail them to the hay, and then they go out on the some of our private land on the Zumwalt Prairie or the U.S. Forest Service ground, which is so they go up to travel back and forth about 40-45 miles, and they pretty much walk both ways out, going out with the calves with them, and then back to town in the fall.
Okay. And Tom, for the purposes of today, we're going to kind of center this discussion around wolves, and you're no stranger to wolves and the impacts that they've had, but this year was particularly difficult. And you want to talk a little bit about what transpired when you first turned out this year?
Yeah, so we've been harassed quite a bit for several years, 4 or 5 years anyway, by the Chestnut pack. To varying degrees each year, sometimes 2 or 3 calves, sometimes maybe 6 or 7, but that I've been missing. This year though, got hit particularly hard right after turning out. I was fairly close to my home ranch house down there, actually. Lost 3 or 4 in one night. The pack was large. There was somewhere between 11 and 13. I know 11 was a minimum number, 13 being the max number. Just got hit incredibly hard. That pack has been chronically depredating beef cattle for 5 or 6 years. The male and female are guessed to be 5, 6, 7 years old, so still kind of right in their prime. And she's known to have litters of 6 to 9 pups every year. So anyway, I lost 4 calves in about a week, and the grass was poor, so I was scattered out. I had 50 pair in this pasture and 50 pair in another pasture, and 6 miles away another 70 pair, and trying to be with them doing non-lethal was so hard. I was sleeping with them there during the heat of the battle, I call it, was that first week to 10 days, and I just couldn't be in enough spots to keep them all safe. Basically what my non-lethal accomplished, I think, was just finding the carcasses and getting them turned in and getting them confirmed, pretty much. Because with that many wolves, there isn't much left. If you don't find them within 12 to 24 hours, will never get a confirmation, due to the fact that 90% of the physical evidence, or 90% of a call being made, confirmed or not confirmed, is physical evidence on the calf. And that's mainly they need to see pre-mortem bites. And that's very hard to do when you have a 150 to 200 pound calf that's with 11 to 13 wolves feeding on it.
Yeah, I know it's been a really trying year, and even some of the stuff you just reiterated there was different protocol than what we were originally told by Wildlife Services that came over from Idaho and gave some of the early trainings. They said about 50% of what you're going to find as evidence is going to be on the ground rather than on the carcass themselves, which a lot of times get consumed. But you talked about in the past you'd lost some calves and they were just missing. You had a confirmed or 2, but of the missing livestock and that compensation program, how has that worked out for you? And of that missing livestock, how much have you been getting compensated for?
So anywhere between I think the worst year was 20%. So let's just say a steer calf's going to be worth $1,000. I think the worst year I got $200. I think a couple of years was maybe 30%. Say it would have been around $300. Last year, I believe, was nearly 50%. So, and I think that's the highest that it's ever been since I've turned in the missing livestock. And each of those years that I turned in missing livestock, I did have at least one confirmed depredation. But it's certainly not. It just depends on, I think, how many producers turn in and how big the pool of money is, and then it just see how far that they can get it blended to go around and try to pay everybody.
Yeah, and one of the problems that we've had with that program too is the federal matching dollars that come to the state. Those can't be used for missing livestock, and so the state ends up trying to compete the best way they can for those federal dollars, and they put more into non-lethal and then into confirmed and probable kills that they can match with, and that's where we end up. One of the things that we're told by the press and some of the environmental groups is there's fraud within the system. There's ranchers are making fraudulent claims, and I've always contended the most fraudulent part of the compensation program is saying we have a compensation program that facilitates for missing livestock, and then we don't have the money there to back it up. You want to talk about any response to that you feel like being called fraudulent in what you're doing there?
Yeah, so each of those years, you're right, and that is sure faulty in the system. I mean, each of those years I kept good records, and had records of talking to ODFW almost weekly about where the wolves were if they knew. I would call them and document when I saw tracks. So I felt like I had done plenty of work. I just didn't come in at the end of the season and put my missing livestock down as I was wholeheartedly every time I put anything down. I think most producers are this way. They truly do believe that that they were depredated on by wolves. It was not uncommon for us prior to wolves. Anything that's off in our herd obviously does not go to permit. If there's something's a little bit off with the cow or a little bit off with the calf, it stays in closer. And certainly, I would say 1 out of 3 years, we did come in with 100% of our calves, and suffered very little losses to bears and cougars. In fact, almost nothing throughout our entire lifetime ranching. And with the wolves, it's been huge losses and pretty devastating. But it doesn't seem to matter whether or not you have the documentation at all. You just kind of throw your hat in the ring with your missing calves, and you never know what's going to be left to get paid for. But it sure hasn't averaged half of the value of the calf, certainly through the years.
Yeah. So you brought it up, and it was one of my questions for you here today, Tom. But going back in history, and your dad has a long history on that ranch, and he's in his 90s now, and spent most of his viable years there on the ranch. How many would you say confirmed bear kills or coyote kills or cougar kills have you guys sustained over the years? Do you have a number?
Yeah, I mean, I do pretty much. I remember 1 2-year-old heifer that was down with ticks, and we found her and picked the ticks off of her, and a bear came in and killed her that night. The same thing one other time, the cow was down with ticks, got the ticks off of her, and I went back the next morning. She was on her feet, but the coyotes had then killed that calf. And those are maybe a twin calf at the ranch. I can only think of 3, and never has a cougar killed one of our calves.
And those were pretty exceptional times when those cattle were down due to tick paralysis, and so you fast forward to today, and How many calves are you down this year?
So I pretty much knew my losses. I underestimated how hard I was hit early, but and when I say early, I mean late April and May to mid-May. By mid-June, though, my dry cows were showing up. So there was just more calves than what I thought that I had lost from the dry cows. So I was pretty much dead on. I was telling people through August, September that I was down 19 calves. And then I was missing 3 pair at the tail end of my gather and lost a calf up against a fence corner. Todd was there for that investigation. A great big steer calf. Todd estimated it to be 670 pounds, and he was there alone with his mom. And they got that calf, and that made number 20. And then when we went ahead and worked everything this fall, that came out exactly to what I had lost. And the reason I knew I did 1,000 hours. I know that sounds crazy, but I was out there 1,000 hours of non-lethal this year. And every single hour of what I did every day is documented. So, and it's actually on a PDF. I think Todd has a copy of it, and several of the ODF&W members, even some of the environmental groups, I made sure that they had a copy of it also.
And Tom, on that, you did work extremely hard. You sustained more losses than what you ever have. In the combined years that you and your dad have been on that property, you've lost more livestock this year than all of those years previous. And it wasn't for lack of effort. You certainly put in the effort. You did quantify, if you put in 40 hours a week, what would that look like? You presented that, and I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, so I think it was around from the late April through the end of October. I think it was in the mid 900s, I believe, what that was. So it was actually more than what a full-time job would have been. And it's just been a rough summer because I've been behind the whole time on my other ranch duties and family duties. And it's just been a very discouraging summer to watch the wolves eat my cattle and work so hard. And kind of at the beginning of the year, I figured I would be successful in my non-lethal. And these wolves are so desensitized to people out there. They often visit coyote campground where hunters are dumping hides over. We have a lot of tribal hunters that come in to the Chestnut area from the reservations, and wolves. A lot of hunters talking about them, coming in right near their camps and people seeing them, and they're just very, very desensitized. So human presence, I didn't think I was very effective with it in protecting my cattle.
Okay, so we've complained, we've identified some things that didn't work. Tom, what is going to work into the future? And first of all, let's talk about management.
Yeah, so I don't know. The one thing that I've been criticized this year about not doing by some of ODF&W is bunching my cows up. And I had the Forest Service come out, Sean Mork, the head of the range department, and then also our ranger for Wallowa Whitman, Brian Anderson, came out, and we looked at some of my pastures where the cows had been ran. It was soils were wet this spring, trailing, the cattle being cornered up by the wolves. And I just don't believe I'm being a good steward of the land or of the cattle really by bunching them up. They need to be scattered to graze. They need to be scattered to utilize the water. So that is the one I'm going to challenge someone to come up this next year if they keep pressing me on that and say, okay, here's my ranges. Now you show me how this is going to work. And I also want to have the Forest Service there because there's also that aspect of it. And oftentimes I feel like we're just told to bunch them up and treat them like a bunch of sheep, and with no regard to the land, soil disturbance, or considerations of what's expected of us in our permits with the Forest Service. So that part has been very frustrating to me.
Yeah, Yeah, I agree, Tom, and you're being told that by a bunch of people that have never owned a cow in their life and never managed a piece of property in their life. Tom, when talk about management this time, I want to talk about the response of how to manage wolves and what might be effective management that would have helped you out this year. And these are, these are going to be hard conversations for people that love wolves, but what needs to be done?
Well, this pack has a history. I mean, so there are a lot of kills. A lot of the producers in Wallowa County are extremely fed up with ODF and W. I'll just give you, I mean, so they're fed up with having their cows chased into a corner, a calf obviously killed by wolves. Cows are all stressed out, they're bunched up, they've been ran, but there isn't quite enough left on that calf to prove that it was a wolf that killed it. And time again, they're wasting a whole day. ODFW gets back to you anywhere from 2 days to 7 days later and says, no, either it was confirmed or it wasn't confirmed. So very few producers are turning anything in. This pack, though, I know has been chronically depredating, not so much year over year on record, but I know that they are. And with my documented losses, the confirmations this spring that I had, and a couple of my neighbors, that pack should have been removed. And constantly requesting lethal take. They did come in and help take out a couple of the wolves, but it was so chronic, in my opinion, that it should have went a lot farther to the lethal. And we're just going to be dealing with this pack again and again and again. So in fact, there were just actually two calves just killed here a week ago, and another one injured, and I haven't heard back. But that was those were killed on a Monday, and yes, on a Monday. They were not going to make the call on them till the following Monday, which would be today. So I haven't heard what the call was on those. So it's just ODFW, I believe, has their own interpretation of the wolf plan. I mean, when I read it and then they say that they're following it, I struggle with that. And that is the big argument that we're having with them, is from a rancher agency standpoint.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of us worked pretty hard on the wolf plan and made some concessions on the wolf plan so that wolves could be successful here. But we darn sure wanted ranchers to be successful here, and this has fallen short of following the spirit of the plan, in my opinion, and we got to get better at that. And killing wolves there's never going to be a popular time to do that within the state of Oregon, but there's times when that's going to have to be done, and the whole pack is going to have to be removed. And I've lived with one of those packs. I saw it happen from 2010. Finally, in 2016, they took out the entire remnant of that pack. You're dealing with a pack now, and you're going to have to go face it again next spring, as you indicated.
Absolutely. I truly believe. I mean, these wolves, they were seen on 2 to 3 different occasions, actually seen. They're very, very smart. They're not chasing so much out in the middle of a pasture. They're almost getting to be like border collies, where they're spreading out and herding them into corners, and bunching them up and getting them as tight as they can, and then just grabbing a calf. They're really, really good at it, and they're cattle killers, and they need to go. And Todd's right. I mean, what got the wolves that he's talking about in trouble? Well, they finally got old enough. They got to be 7, 8 years old, and it became harder and harder for them to kill any wildlife. And then finally they got close to enterprise and were close to people's houses with kids, and they were killing nightly. And it was unbelievable what it took finally for them to get them to take those wolves out. They were, I don't know how many sheep and cattle they killed in a matter of 2 or 3 days. But I have no doubt that we're going to be dealing with that same sort of situation with the Chestnut pack.
Yeah, and that Imnaha pack that you referred to, they had over 50 confirmed kills to their name when they were finally taken out completely. And
Yeah, see, and that is extremely unfair. Think about that. 50 confirmed kills over the years. That pack should have been gone. That pack should have been taken out.
And so, Tom, we've talking about what needs to be done with management. Once wolves become depredators of livestock, what needs to happen? Compensation. Let's talk about that for a minute. We're looking at maybe proposing some legislation that changes compensation a little bit with a multiplier of 7. Do you want to talk about that? And is that something that you agree with, has some merit?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think Todd, and I don't know where I think it came from Todd and John. I think maybe modeled off, they're using that possibly in Wyoming. And it's based on a study, I believe, that for every every confirmed, there was 7 others that the wolves had killed in this study, estimated. What that's going to do is it's going to get the producers more involved, get them to call ODF&W, report these possible depredations, and get them confirmed. And then also help so much in this compensation where we're getting paid for 20% of the missing livestock. Then we would definitely, it would help in the compensation. So it would benefit twofold, definitely.
Okay. And I agree, Tom. There are a lot of people that have given up. They don't call in anymore. I had one of the people works for a state department say, well, you need to round all those people up that aren't participating, and I need their names, and I need to have some sort of testimony. I asked a few, and they said, oh no, we're not going to do that. And so I do think the multiplier has some merit, and yeah, it did originate from Wyoming and has been successful there. So we might press on that a little bit. Tom, we're going to wrap this up here. I want to give you some time with some closing thoughts that you might want to implement to somebody that has maybe just started dealing with wolves, or maybe they've never had them at all, and what they might be able to expect.
Well, so much depends. I mean, I can tell you one thing with the investigations that's so frustrating. So the wolf, and just trust me on this, the wolf is 100% innocent until 100% proven guilty. And it is so frustrating to show on the ground to ODF&W people, chase sites, ground disturbance, all these other factors, and oftentimes they seem to listen to us, but it never goes into to part of the call being made, either confirmed or not confirmed. So pack size, sometimes we think it matters. People say packs of 7 and under, but guys, 2 or 3 wolves were seen here a week ago, and they wreaked havoc on big calves. You're often told the wolves go after constantly this spring. I was told by ODF&W, and it was very frustrating to me because they said they're going to go after the weakest animals, easiest prey. And right now your calves are the easiest prey. It's the fawns and calf elk aren't born. Well, it didn't even slow down when that happened. And the calves they killed were some of my biggest calves. I mean, out of the 6 I had confirmed, 5 of them were big steer calves. So it's very frustrating. And which most producers do, if you really love your cattle and care about their health and safety, there's nothing more frustrating than to have a pack of wolves chewing on you. I can certainly tell you that. Anybody could call me up and talk to me about it any time. But there were a couple of ranches that I know of that had completely knew their cows, knew their ground. The cows were chased completely down through the rims and rocks and everything, but there just wasn't enough left of that calf. And lots of wolf tracks around, bones crunched and everything, but they're not going to make those calls if you don't find them soon enough. I can guarantee you that the wolf, I'll say it again, the wolf is 100% innocent until 100% proven guilty. And that is hard to do. It's very hard to get a confirmation and very frustrating.
It is a frustrating process, and it's frustrating to be where you're at. And your dad did a tremendous amount of work on this really early on. He was one of the pioneers in working on the wolf issue, and it's sad to me that it's come to roost here. We just lost a good friend in Wayne Cook, and I remember talking to Wayne in all the years that he went out to Elk Mountain. He'd never lost a calf out there, and that one year he lost 2 or 3 just a few years ago, and then one of the cows tried to run him over in his own corral, and she was a gentle cow, and I thought, gosh, something's got to change here, and we have to make some better policies for ranchers. We need to strike a better balance, and we're a ways from that, but we're gonna keep pushing forward, and hopefully we'll get there. Well, Tom, I really appreciate you coming on today, and we'll wrap this up and call it a day. But again, thank you for all you and your family have done on this issue, and for you participating in this, what has been a frustrating exercise, I'm sure, and all the work that you put in. I hope it pays off. I hope people listen, and I hope that we move the needle due to your efforts. So.
Yeah, well, I'm a fighter, and you are too, Todd. Thank you for all you're doing. I mean, I know you've told me numerous times you're doing it for my kids and your grandkids, and so that's what it's all about. So you've been right in there, and it's I'm not ready to throw my hands in the air and tell ODF&W to stick it. I'm ready to fight this thing out and try to maybe get some policy changed and try to force their hands to follow that wolf plan better.
Okay. Well, thanks, Tom. And we'll have a brighter subject to talk about here someday soon.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, good to be here.